All right, good evening. It is December 18th, Monday evening. Board members present: Pam Sanderson, Babette Morrill, Tim Jandibar, Ruth Voltaggio, Justin Miller, and Brenda DiMatteo. Voting members will be Pam Sanderson and myself, Matt Fowler. Voting members are Pam Sanderson, Babette Morrill, Tim Jandibar, Ruth Voltaggio, and Matt Fowler. The first item of business will be the minutes. Has anybody read the minutes? And if there's any discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of November 27th.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And now we'll get right into it. We're hearing case 1711, which is a rehearing. Suzanne Steed and Grace Burr, 32 Shore Drive, map 12239. Would you like to come forward?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Maria Dolder. I'm an attorney, and with me is Grace Burr and Suzanne Steed.
So tonight we're going to be hearing for variance Article 4, B6, D8 for the type of road frontage. It's currently on a private road. We'll only be discussing that. The other variances that were originally brought before us have been voted on.
Yep, and those were both granted. Yep. I'm going to start with my
So
introduction.
if you want to, we'll go right from scratch.
All right, absolutely.
Excuse me. Just want to
No
hear you
problem.
better.
You tell me you're all set? All right, so as you all know, the applicants are proposing to construct a 512 square foot addition with a basement onto the existing residence that's located on the property. This is in order to create a bedroom and storage, neither of which currently exists on this property. As part of the construction of the addition, the applicants are going to relocate their utilities, which are currently located in a shed outside of the house. So they're going to relocate those into the house. They'll be upgrading the septic system for the property and updating their siding. So the Harvey Lake Estates community has been around since the 1950s. They consist of small lots, and they're all located on private roads. So as you indicated, at this point in time, the applicant is only seeking one variance for this proposal, which is to not have to upgrade the road, which is a private road. And so before getting into the specifics of the variance criteria itself, I would just like to highlight a few items. I know that most of you have already been through this process with us, so I'd like to highlight at least what's new. First, the applicant has been able to establish an association for the purposes of road maintenance. You were provided with a copy of the association document, and that has been recorded at the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. As you will see, that document provides for road maintenance in their area. With that said, they've also contracted with a contractor to clear and maintain the roads, including plowing. And we've also supplied you with a copy of that letter showing that they have a contract in place for that. My clients also obtained an estimate from K&K Landscape for the further work that they intend to have done to the roadway in the spring. We also provided you with a copy of that estimate, and that's in our prior meetings we had represented that my clients were looking at doing some reclaimed asphalt, and that's for that particular work. They still intend on doing that. Second, and most important to this particular application, is that the applicant has been able to upgrade the section of Shore Drive between the bottom of Birch Street and the community beach. This is approximately 150 feet of roadway. Very specifically, the roadway itself has been graded. The applicant cut back a significant amount of the overgrown bushes. So once they got out there to do a little bit of work, they realized that part of the problem on the road in terms of its width was that it had become overgrown with some bushes. So they were able to trim a significant amount of that in their area. So now along the applicant's frontage, in addition to the grading and the other work that they did, have been able to widen this road area to around 22 feet. Based on measurements that they took along Harvey Lake Road, which is a town-maintained road, this is now wider than a great portion of that road, which they measured at 20 feet. In analyzing this variance request, as you know, this board needs to look at how this specific request, a 512 square foot addition to an existing residence, has an impact on the road. How does this addition change the fact that there's a private road, and why would that addition in and of itself make it so that this road has to be upgraded to subdivision standards at this point in time? Another way to look at it is, how does this addition make it more likely that emergency vehicles will be needed as a result of it? Or how does this particular addition cause greater hazards or require emergency assistance that's different than what currently exists on the property? This is just an addition, it's not a new house or a new situation, and we're not changing the use at all. So I just ask you to bear that in mind as we go through the criteria. Now, in the past, you've had me stop at this point, and so that you guys can ask me questions before I jump into the, do you want to do that?
Sure, I think we'll ask for any abutters that would like to speak, if there are any around. What's that?
I just for the record, I still am going to go through all 5 prongs, just so
Yep.
you know. Okay.
We'll do that.
I just want to make sure.
Seeing no abutters that want to speak, we will close the public hearing. Or, no, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We'll go around the table and ask questions if you have any questions.
I just did have a question. Correct, this is an estimate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and work to be done in the spring?
Yes.
Any estimate of time frame on that work?
So honestly, in order to do that, I want to make sure that we get the large trucks in first. I don't want them on the new asphalt, so I would do it after the foundation was poured and the septic was done. I would do it after that.
So rough estimate, spring, end of spring?
Well, we're hoping, yeah, to start this whole process in the spring of building. So I would say, if you want me to be honest, like summertime. The goal is definitely 2018.
Second question, time frame of pictures?
So that was, when did we submit the motion? It was done at that time for the rehearing.
That would have been somewhere around September.
Yeah. And work continued to be done, so all along Shore Drive, more grading and cutting back of trees. So that was pretty much just 2 days of work. We continue to work for 3 weekends, 8 hours a day.
Okay. All right. I'm looking through on your current paper, the fellow who is doing the plowing and all.
Yes.
It says Birch Street, Ash Street, and Shore Road for the season. The entire length of Birch and Ash?
Yep.
And Shore, okay.
Yes.
And are those separate, does each street do a separate payment? Is this a joint?
Yes.
Because I
So
know you
Birch-
just got the 4
Birch
homes
has
there.
always taken care of itself and maintained the roads on their own for years. If you can tell by the pictures, it's a great condition. Ash has some new owners on it, and there is somebody that took charge of getting payments from everybody and sealing that with them, and then our association is working. Matt's actually done the road for us for 3 years. He's the one that's been doing it since we lived there. And the road was never plowed through past the beach until we purchased that property. It dead-ended at the house before us, so fire trucks could not go through all the way to Shore Drive around. And we also plow our yard in the winter, so there is full access to the property.
Okay, all right. So far in front of us, all we have is the new submission of papers. And I'm just wondering, should I be including your previous submitted?
Yes, so with a rehearing, our original application is still the application
Okay.
that we're working on.
So the
whatever we
material
submitted-
plans and all, you, okay.
Yes,
all right,
whatever we
just wanted to
submitted
ask that.
originally is still, we don't submit a new application.
That's sufficient question for me for the moment.
Have you had your first association meeting?
We're actually due to have it the first of the year, and we're going to talk about bringing in fill and bringing up the road. And actually, Ash just did that. They brought in 4 loads of gravel and did some significant work on that, as well as they cut back some trees and want to continue to do that in the spring. I mean, we're all working together and we all talk, you know, as a community. I mean, we're all direct feeder roads to each other and have impact on each other. So next year is about fill and bringing up the road. And that excludes our section that we already committed to you guys. Before the association was developed, we committed to the board that we would do our section of the road with asphalt. That is outside of our association because we agreed upon that. The burden of the payment is ours on that, not the association's.
Now, on these pictures, just quickly.
I have better ones. They're all in
Well,
order.
not that they're bad.
No, it's just.
We put them on a
I
poster board
have
in case it might
pictures so
be
you really
easier.
can see the difference of the before and afters by our section. So very much grown in. The road actually did this, and you can see afterwards.
That's the same spot.
That it is the same spot. I didn't stand in the exact same spot. I apologize. But yes, the same spot. This is facing towards Ash. And then again, here, the road, before it was graded, you can see how overgrown it is. And then afterwards, it's grading. And then you can see how wide open this is. This faces the town beach. And we actually did do some trimming at the beach as well, around the corner to make it more accessible. And then I have... I'm getting into my job over here. And then there's this as well, represented a car that's here, so you can see how wide the road is. So again, this is before. Over here, you can see how grown it is, how we widened it. There was concerns about turnaround, so this is the turnaround at the public beach. This is actually, if I was to walk towards my property, even though you don't need a turnaround because the fire trucks can drive through on Shore Drive to any of the other roads, but you can see we've made significant improvements on the width of the road.
Are those logs that go down on the side there, on the right, the top right?
We put
looking
the
at?
rocks there.
Oh, are there rocks?
When we actually did a lot of the grading, we kicked up a lot of rocks and we made it really smooth. So those were the extra rocks, so we just put them on the side.
Kind of looked like fallen trees, it was like a border. You made a
Little decorative element.
border or something.
No, so no.
Thank you.
How many owners' properties are in Harvey Lake Estates?
In the entire estate? Do you know how many
It's gotta be 100. There's a lot of properties there.
So this, I'm just reading the Harvey Lake Cove Maintenance Road Association, and so it looks to me like 4 properties are in the association?
It is just for our section of Shore Drive, that is correct.
Yeah, because they're not required to maintain the roads outside of their area. This is just for the roads that are around their property in and of itself.
Okay. As I recall, your intention is to continue using this as a summer residence? Okay. That's all the questions I have.
That answered my questions. I don't have any others.
I don't know about just maintaining that particular road. If we're looking at upgrading the road so that emergency vehicles can get in and out without being hazardous to themselves, I think we have to look at all the private roads going from town road to the residence, whether that's 1 or 2 or 3 private roads.
I don't disagree that we can look at those, but you can't require an applicant to upgrade roads that they're not on. That would be like asking us to ask the town to upgrade Harvey Lake Road, which is probably in the most disrepair at this point in time.
I actually drove down there today. You had stated that, and from those pictures, it does look like it done a really good job widening the road. To say that it's wider than Harvey Lake, I'm not quite sure. I took some pictures today, and by the width of my feet, just checked the gee-whiz to see what was plowed, and it's roughly 12, 13 feet wide.
Can I comment on that? I did talk to Matt about that because I did ask him to widen the road, and he said because it's the first snow, it is so soft, he was digging up the ground and he was going to ruin his equipment. So I specifically talked to him about that because we visited the property right after the first snowstorm, and we were just recently up there. And so he said he's got to wait till the ground hardens a little bit, or he's gonna damage the road. So I did go up there and take pictures, and I know exactly because we were just up there.
Yeah.
Same question we had last month. You showed your photos, submitted them for the record. Are you planning to leave those with us?
Well, we submitted all of those photos with
Are they the
what we...
same
they're the
one?
Yes,
same-
yep, the same one.
Okay.
We just
I
put those on,
misunderstood.
no, they're the same pictures that I submitted to
Okay,
the
thank you.
board already in the package. We just thought it might be easier for you
Sure,
to look at
thank
it on
you.
the board. You're welcome.
You can go around again, Matt.
So because you haven't had your first association meeting, you don't know what the dues will be or what the annual upkeep?
If you read it, it's going to be based on what the association agrees to do at that time, and then it will be divided amongst each member.
Right.
So we
Not yet.
have had many conversations about this, and we have put Phil down. One of our neighbors has it, lives there full-time, and the goal is to bring in like an 18-ton truck or however big that is and put down and continue to build up the road over time.
Oop, you wanna go ahead again?
Oh, I've seen.
You've seen,
Were there other questions that you wanted to go over?
I guess I do. So, I mean, my concern is, from the town standpoint, is with the new regulations or new laws, getting in there. And to me, so that means that the road needs to be, and I also went a few days ago, and I do appreciate the statement about the soft roads. But I do think that's because they're not up to any standard. You know, you just keep putting in fill on top of whatever's underneath. So my concern, or what I was leading up to, my concern is physically getting in there from the town road to their property, the whole distance, not just in front of their home. And I think I'm within my rights to expect that. So, I mean, to my mind, we need to get in the whole distance. And I see Linda's over there, and she's going to make a statement here.
The zoning ordinance says shall front on a lot that's upgraded. I mean, the lot shall front on a road that's upgraded. So it's the frontage of the lot.
Only in front of that lot?
That's what the zoning
Yeah.
ordinance
And
says.
that's what we're asking
No,
for
no.
a variance from.
No, it's saying the road that
Yeah.
that the lot fronts on. It doesn't say to get to that road that the lot fronts on.
And just if I could add, we did submit a letter from the Fire Chief Bassett.
I
and-
read the letter, yeah.
Yeah, and in his letter, he does indicate your road seems to be fine. And as we go through our 5 criteria, you will hear me say that there are approximately 21 out of 24 of those residences are full-time residences. So we're not asking them to go full-time. Clearly, for those full-time people, you have to have emergency vehicles and other vehicles going down all of those roads. I mean, this is one of the few seasonal properties that's even left there. So in terms of whether or not people can get down there, I mean, all full-time residences get propane delivered, they get UPS, FedEx, I mean, they get, in fact, we have pictures showing some of those big vehicles. So clearly, if these people are living there all year round, and they have to have access to all of the emergency vehicles and other vehicles, they're going down there. And
I would agree with you, but from that same letter, I believe Fred Nicholas Bassett states that on many occasions they've had to pull patients out with a POV. They've gotten stuck.
Down the other end.
Yeah, but that's not our
not
road.
our end.
That's not the area that this property is
That is down
located
by Bass. It's the completely other end of our community. They would never come in that way to service us. They would come in Ash or Birch.
in. And those are not the roads that they have a problem with.
If anybody has questions, I think they can jump in.
Yeah, and anytime you want me to just go through the criteria, I'm happy to do so if that helps
Yeah. Do you
move
want-
along.
Want to do that and then come back to the questions, or if somebody has any more questions prior to that?
No, I guess questions.
All right, again, we're going to be asking the 5 questions. 4. Variance 4B6, D8 for the type of road frontage. The lot is on a private road. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because
The New Hampshire courts have determined that in order to be contrary to the public interest, the variance must unduly and in a marked degree conflict with the ordinance such that it violates the ordinance basic zoning objectives. So now to ascertain whether or not this variance would do that, you have to look at whether or not it alters the essential characteristics of the neighborhood or if it threatens the public health, safety, or welfare of the public. This variance does neither of those. As I stated, the applicants are not proposing to construct anything that's out of the norm for this area. It's simply requesting to construct a modest addition to a residence that already exists on the property. They're not changing the use, they're not changing the occupancy. They're not making it larger so that they can have multiple people live there. It is solely going to be a 1-bedroom residence, and it will be seasonal. So we're not asking to change any of that. The majority of the homes within this area have 2 to 3 bedrooms, and they are significantly larger than this particular property. And as I indicated, approximately 21 out of 24 are full-time residences. In terms of the trucks, I've already mentioned, in terms of the fact that there are multiple full-time residences there, they require trucks to visit the properties for things like propane, UPS, FedEx. They even had a large crane go down to bring one of the modular homes that was permitted on the road. So clearly, the emergency vehicles and access must be provided because these people live there all year round. That is a clear indication that this road can support the proposed use without the necessity of being upgraded to subdivision standards. So we're not just talking about upgrading the road, which I think the applicants have indicated they have clearly upgraded this road. The requirement is that we upgrade our frontage to subdivision standards. So we're asking that that be waived. As such, this variance is not going to be contrary to the public interest, but it will allow them to utilize this property in a reasonable manner.
The use is not contrary to the spirit of the ordinance because
One of the express general purposes of your zoning ordinance is to balance the process of growth, development, and change with the need to preserve and enhance the qualities which make Northwood a safe and desirable place to live. This variance request is certainly in keeping with that. The underlying use of the property itself is expressly permitted in your zoning ordinance. And once again, I just want to make it real clear, the use itself is not being changed. The occupancy, how this property operates, is not being changed at all with this variance. Amongst the stated purposes of Article 4B1 of your zoning ordinance is the desire to prevent congestion in your streets, overcrowding, and avoid undue concentration of population. So the variance here is certainly in keeping with that spirit as well. The property has already been built upon, so it's not a brand new residence or bringing more people to the area. The proposed use, even though it will result in a larger house on the property, it's certainly not amongst the largest in their area. They are able to maintain all of their setbacks under your zoning ordinance with the addition, and like I said, they're not changing the use of the property. This particular property also has a very natural wooded buffer from its abutting neighbors, which provides for that less crowding that the zoning ordinance seeks to achieve. The lot on the side where the addition is proposed to be constructed consists of a community beach. Also, Article 7B2 of your zoning ordinance specifically allows for construction of an addition to a non-conforming structure when the expansion is in a direction away from the lot line at issue. That's clearly the situation in this particular case as well. So, although the applicants don't intend to upgrade the road to town subdivision standards, they have significantly upgraded the road. And as you heard, they do intend to perform further upgrades in the spring. They were able to widen the road area to around 22 feet, and granting this relief shall have no impact on public safety, health, or general welfare of the public. In fact, as I stated, we got the letter from the fire chief, which states that their road itself is not an issue. It seems to be fine. They have upgraded their section that they're required under the zoning ordinance. So therefore, this would not be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance, but instead will allow them to utilize the property in a reasonable fashion.
granting the variance would do substantial justice because
All right, one of the guiding rules that the New Hampshire courts use in evaluating substantial justice is that any loss to the individual that's not outweighed by a gain to the general public is considered an injustice. Under this standard, they clearly satisfy that requirement. As stated a couple times, the property has already been built upon and it houses a residence.
Could you read that again?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So it's any loss to the individual that's not outweighed by a gain to the general public is considered an injustice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Although the proposed addition does result in a larger home on the property than what currently exists, they are able to maintain all their setbacks. The bottom line is, at this point in time, if the town were to require the applicant to upgrade their portion of the road to subdivision standards, that would be a tremendous loss to the applicant, and there wouldn't be any justified gain to the public. This area has already been heavily built upon. It is has so many of the residents are full-time. Asking that this particular applicant, in order to put an addition onto their property, that they upgrade to subdivision standards would be an injustice. The reality is, it's impossible. The applicant would never, ever be able to meet the requirements of your zoning ordinance. Amongst other requirements, your town subdivision standards require a minimum two-way road width of 22 feet, a minimum 4-foot wide gravel shoulders on each side. The applicant does not own enough property in that area to provide for 30 feet of width, and they don't have the legal right to take private property from other landowners in order to create it. Without allowing any variance relief from the zoning ordinance, it would be deemed an unconstitutional taking as it applies to this property. Substantial justice is also achieved by granting variances which do not adversely impact on nearby property owners and which allow a property to be used reasonably. As I've already stated, the difference between what's required under your zoning ordinance and what is being provided by my clients does not create any adverse effect on the adjoining neighborhood. In fact, I know that I submitted them in the original application. I'm not sure if you still, so we got 7 letters of support from abutters and neighboring properties. I don't know if, I guess I'll give you another copy of them just to make sure. We did submit them already, but just to make sure they're part of the record. If any of you want to see them again, I did bring extra copies. I believe you all saw them the first time around. But there's 7 letters of support from our abutters and neighbors who do not have any issue with this addition. They've all said that they think that it would be positive. And so clearly that shows in and of itself that there is no adverse impact on adjoining neighborhood. On the other hand, if you balance that against what they would lose, the applicants won't be able to have a bedroom because they have no bedroom currently. They have no storage area on this property. And quite frankly, if it's not granted, they can never do anything further on this property. I mean, it precludes them from ever building anything. So therefore, that's substantial justice.
The proposed use would not diminish surrounding property values because...
Okay, well, once again, they're proposing to construct this addition by obtaining proper building permits in compliance with your health code and health regulations. They've already obtained their shoreland impact permit and septic approval, so both of those are in place. This will allow the applicants to not only have a bedroom and storage area, but it will also allow them to relocate the utilities on their property. So their utilities are outside, they're in a shed, and they go under to the house. It's, quite frankly, it's quite unusual, and it's out of norm for even this area. All the other residences have internal utilities. So this will allow them to bring that up to, norm and to allow them to use their property more reasonably. They are able to construct the addition while maintaining all their required setbacks, so therefore they won't have any impact on neighboring property values because they're encroaching. Instead, this newly updated residence, because they'll update the siding at the same time, with an updated septic system will only add value to the neighborhood. The fact that they've been able to upgrade the road significantly as part of this proposal shows that that is also adding value to this area and adding value to this property. And then clearly the fact that we have 7 letters of support from abutters and neighboring properties is clear indication that there's no concern in the area that this would have any adverse effect on surrounding property values.
Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship because the special conditions of this property that distinguish it from other properties in the area are as follows.
This property is unique in several ways. First of all, unlike a lot of its neighboring properties, it has a natural wooded buffer from its abutting neighbors, so it's not right on top of each other. Even though it has comparable acreage than many of the properties in the area, the addition proposed will not make this the largest home in the area. In fact, it will be either comparable or smaller than most of the other residences in the area. The majority of the homes in that area have 2 to 3 bedrooms. Currently, this has none. At this point in time, and they also don't have any closets. They have no closets in the property as it sits today. Like I said, it's also unique because it currently has all of its utilities outside in the shed. They'd like to remedy that situation as well. This property is also unique in the fact that it happens to abut the community beach. And what that community beach does is it provides for a turnaround. I think you saw in the pictures that it has a large area. So there is a turnaround for emergency vehicles right at the frontage of this property if need be. It's large enough to support that, and it is unique to this particular area. The frontage provided along our private road is also unique because it is relatively flat and they have good sight distance from this lot. In doing all of the clearing and the brush cutting and grading of the road, they've only been able to increase that and make that a better situation. They have been able to widen the road, like I said, in their frontage area around 22 feet, which is unique for the area. Not all of the other areas are that wide. And this is the minimum relief that's required in order to allow them to construct such a modest addition for the property so that they can have a bedroom and a closet.
Owing to the special,
No, you're right.
owing to the special conditions set forth above, the property cannot reasonably be used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable reasonable use of it because.
You jumped to B.
I'm thinking too much.
Sorry. It's A1.
Owing to the, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application of the provisions to the property because.
Yes. As I've already stated, the actual use that's proposed for this property is not changing. It's a single-family residence. It's expressly permitted under your zoning ordinance. This is going to be seasonal as it sits today. The applicants are just requesting to construct a modest addition to this home. They're not asking to make it full year. They're not asking to change the use or the occupancy of it. Even though there are no lots within the community that are 2 acres in size, which would meet your zoning ordinance, many of the lots have much larger homes located on them, and all of them utilize private roads. I mean, all of the homes, the 4 season included, which are much larger, use private roads. And up until this point, none of them have been required to upgrade the road to subdivision standards. Given that this proposed use will not alter the essential characteristics of the neighborhood or the property itself, instead it will allow the property to be used for and in the same spirit as it's permitted, there's no fair and substantial relationship between the general purposes of your zoning ordinance and the specific restrictions on this particular property. As you know, an association has been established to maintain and plow the roadway, and they have a contract in place for this work to be performed. So even though we're not going to be able to upgrade the road to subdivision standards, they have significantly upgraded and widened this roadway. Let's see. In terms of the use of the property, the community beach that sits right next door to them, it is used by the general public, and they travel along this private road in that area. They bring large boats down there, so they are able to get in and out of this area, get into the community beach and get back out. And some of the boats are rather large that are brought down in that area. So given this and the fact that they're not changing their use of the property, there is no fair and substantial relationship between the restriction and this particular project that's being proposed today, which is just the addition.
The proposed use is a reasonable one because?
The underlying use of the property itself is permitted in the zoning ordinance. The design of the addition, even with our variances that we need, exceeds the required setbacks under your zoning ordinance and therefore doesn't need further relief for that, nor will it impact the neighboring properties. And quite frankly, it was designed in this fashion. As I'm sure many of you may have recalled from our first time around, the state had actually approved a larger design. The applicants chose to chisel that down to make sure that it was the minimum that they needed in order to accomplish their goals. The property already has been built upon. It currently houses the residence as it sits. So this use is clearly reasonable. All of the other properties within this neighborhood have at least 2 to 3 bedrooms. They have storage, they have closets. Clearly those are reasonable uses of the property. And the fact, like I said, that they're year-round makes it that an addition, which is not going to make this house year-round, is a reasonable request on this private road without having to bring it up to subdivision standards.
And you have a B as well?
We don't have to do B unless, generally speaking, most boards don't ask us to do it unless they think we're required to.
Okay. So at this point, with that list,
Please read B.
owing to the special conditions set forth above, the property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable reasonable use of it because.
As I indicated earlier, your requirements under this portion of the zoning requirement requires it to be upgraded to subdivision standards. Some of your subdivision standards include that it be a minimum 2-way road width of 22 feet with a minimum 4-foot wide gravel shoulders on both sides. That would require the applicant to provide at least 30 feet of width in order to meet your zoning ordinance. That's impossible for them to achieve. Without achieving that and without some variance relief, they would never be able to put on an addition or any other work on this property. Given the fact that it's not only impossible for them to meet, but this is the minimum relief that they need, without allowing for any variance relief from this ordinance, it arises to an unconstitutional taking of the property. This is a minimum request that they're asking for. It's 512 square foot addition. They're not changing the use, they're not changing the people who come to it or the amount of people that can come to it. The traffic that will go to this property on the private road today exists the same as whether they have this addition or not. So in looking at your zoning ordinance and the requirements and the variance that's requested, when you put that together, there is no way that they can use this property in strict conformance with the zoning ordinance. And so we're asking that this relief be granted so that they can.
Mr. Chairman, do you have that in writing, or was it we did not. So.
Yeah, I submitted the original application had to be.
So what you just read is.
It's not verbatim. I'm allowed to present more
Okay.
in my presentation, but you have an application and I filled out as B.
You did?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not what that says.
Yeah, our original application is what we're still working on.
Right.
So we submitted an original
So you
application.
just said a lot of things that aren't there, so I'm inquiring
no.
whether it was all,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think 'cause
required
they
to
can-
put it in
they
writing.
can
They
read
could
or-
add to.
Yes.
Yeah, they
right.
It can be verbal.
So I just want to
as
make sure that was all got, or in.
well. Minutes, yeah, it'll be in minutes. Yeah.
Thank you.
What we'll do next is go around the table again and ask questions after hearing the 5 answers that we got.
Do you wish to go through the 5 one at a time, or just discussion to ask questions, or
Discussion to ask questions.
just as soon ask questions?
Yeah, I don't think we haven't gone through 5 individuals before. I don't know if we need to this time, but we can.
All right, so, and refresh me, we're at the point, we're still open?
We are.
We're still open. Looking at your association, kind of looking to see, and I think it's a good start. I'm just realizing that it, registered on the 21st of November. It's not quite a month old yet by its formality. We don't see a budget here. You haven't had your first meeting yet. You've got an estimate for upcoming work to be done later on. And obviously we're in a tough weather time to assess what has been done at this point. I'm just kind of wondering if there is some openness to looking at this a little further down the road, or if we totally want to go through the entire process this evening, kind of whether or not, maybe a site review once we get through this winter season for a better assessment of what it is you've done out there. Okay. It's tough to assess. Again, I understand with the plow and the soft road, so it's kind of an idea of how do you feel about that?
So are you suggesting that this be continued for like 4
I'm
or
just
6?
wondering how you
No,
feel.
I mean, I guess that's what I'm
Yeah.
asking. Is that what you're
We're
suggesting?
kind of looking at, going all the way this evening, or looking at something in a better light. Just a discussion, a question on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem is this has been going on for approximately 6 months as it is. I mean, they were, quite frankly, hoping to do that this year. I mean, obviously, I'll talk to them about this, but I think the concern is if we continue this yet another 4 months or so now, do they lose yet almost another year of being able to build? You know, they've put a lot of time and effort into it, and clearly with the association, I understand they don't have a budget. A lot of associations don't, quite frankly, actually come up with their budgets. They do them on a year-to-year basis based on what's needed. So the fact that right now we all know that they're contracted to take care of this winter is really what they need. And the fact that they're going to then, January, sit down and say, okay, what are we going to do for the spring? What kind of upgrades are we going to do? They're all on the hook for doing that now. They've all signed on that they will cooperate. They're going to work together. They've been having ongoing discussions, and I think it's been a good thing for the parties. I think they were all excited, quite frankly, to have this maintenance agreement in place, to know that they were going to work together. So I think in terms of, I mean, it's going to be a concerted effort that they are going to do this. They didn't go into this lightly. I mean, we recorded it because we meant to, and I know we recorded it late, but quite frankly, we were just waiting to see where we fell.
Yeah, we did the document beforehand. I registered at that point in time when we knew what was going on with here. But when we did that road maintenance, this wasn't Grace and myself. This was the community. Everybody was out there working on this road for weekends and weekends. And the goal is that this is an evolving document like any document. It's to be reviewed and updated as it's stated. We actually looked at another Northwood Association document and mini plagiarized it to get what other people were doing, where people have been able to build before as far as an association, and what we need to do. Quite frankly, this is my first go at it, right? So the goal is, and we have other people that are interested in joining, and this has actually made other people, you know, do more improvements and see what we're doing. So it's kind of starting a fire in our little neighborhood, Ash and such. So this is a start, and the budget is evaluated every year. You can't just put a stagnant budget on it. It's ebb and flow in what you need. If you need more money, you put more money in, and everybody has agreed to this in our section.
Nope, that answers it. The other question would be not changing the status quo and looking at down the road. You said seasonal as it is today.
Yep.
Seasonal as it is next year once your project is done?
No, see, like the way they use it today is the way that it will continue. They're just looking to put a bedroom in it. They sleep in their living room. I mean, that's it. So how they use it today, how they've used it since they purchased it, they're not planning on changing that use. This won't increase their use of the property, is what I mean by that.
Next.
I don't have any further questions.
If I remember right, I guess I'll rephrase it. What is the size of the property now, the house?
512 square feet. The house, you asked? Or the lot?
The house.
The house.
The house, 512.
And you're adding 512?
Yep.
I don't really have any questions. I just get a kick out of doubling modest.
Well, if you look at the
That was
houses,
the word you used a lot.
I did,
in
because
that.
if you look at the homes that are around it,
Yeah.
they're much larger. They're 2 stories.
That may be, but I just
So this
find
is
doubling
modest.
not modest, but anyway.
Yeah, in order to get they need to move the utilities from the shed. So in order to do that, they need to make it big enough to allow for
That wasn't my point.
The reason why we consider it modest is because the state approved us. We have 2 levels and a garage. And that's what the state approved. And understanding the feeling of the town, we scaled that down to a more modest ask.
Thank you.
I have no question.
I love the fact, we could have a motion and then discuss, close the hearing if we want to.
Questions?
I don't really have any other questions. I do have a question. Just to make sure that I'm clear. The only road that I'm looking at, as far as first responders, as far as any vehicle needing access to the property, is Shore Drive. to contain those 4 properties.
As far as the zoning ordinance, the requirement for the upgrade is for the road that it fronts on.
Even though that really doesn't make
If I
sense.
can add, yeah, it's section, Article 4, section capital B, number 1, lowercase b, quote, "All lots for new building development shall front." And then it lists the requirements.
So even though that really doesn't make any common sense, just legally, I have to look at that.
The last sentence in that section is that they also need to comply with 67441, which I understand the applicants have said that they would address subsequent to obtaining all the variances they need.
That would be addressed at that time through that process with the Board of Selectmen.
Gotcha, okay.
If the road going to Shore Drive was narrow or inaccessible, then that discussion would happen with the Board of Selectmen.
I don't have any questions. At this point, I'd be looking for a motion.
What?
A motion on the variance, either yea or nay toward it, get a second, and we can discuss.
You want to close, or?
So we could close, yeah.
We think you should close the public.
Prior to a vote,
Prior to the motion.
prior to the motion.
You can ask if there's any further comments from the public, but I don't.
Are there any comments from the public before we close?
I live down the street from them, and they're doing a great job. I have no problem. I have a 1995 Peterbilt. It's 300 inches long. It's 8.5 feet wide and 12 feet tall. Weighs 20,000 pounds, and I can drive up and down the road no problem. I drive to my house every day with it.
Just for the record, can you state your name?
My name's John King. Live at 18 Shore Drive.
Thanks. Do I need a motion for that, to close public?
No, you can just close it.
All right, so at this time, we'll close public session. And at this point, we can discuss as a board.
Do we need a motion prior to discussion, or can we just discuss?
Yes.
You need a motion.
We need a motion.
Need a motion.
Discuss.
Motion to
May I?
discuss, or motion on the variance? Well, we're rusty tonight.
The other option is you can continue and deliberate next month if you want, if you need time to go over the information that's presented, or you can go forward with a motion.
So public is closed,
Public's closed,
so we can discuss that as well.
correct.
It's up to what pleases the board if we want to postpone this and sit on this and look through it more and pick it up next month or discuss.
No. Personally, I would rather not postpone it till next month.
I as
We've
well.
gone through the paperwork.
So I can start discussion. Looking at the photos, I'm looking at this particular photo here. It says after Shore Drive heading toward Ash Street. I mean, that looks like exactly what we want. No one, as little or as much as I do, I mean, 22 feet, I think they could probably measure that 22 feet, but I know that a lot of it's probably soft soil, at least on one side. So 22 feet's a stretch. However, on the other hand, they have started an association. They're getting that in order. However, there's only 4 people in the association. It's in its infancy so far, so we don't really have any financial records or history saying that it's been plowed every year, or they've been contracted every year, or things like that, which if it's a new association, what are we supposed to do? We can't have that appear. The fire chief's letter didn't praise the road, but it didn't downplay it that much either, or say that it was impassable, or, that particular road, as they even stated, wasn't the worst part of the letter. The current conditions today, when I drove down, she addressed, and I also think that's part of the soft edge. So, in my opinion, I have a lot of pros and cons, and I'm really want to do the right thing. I'm trying to.
I too have pros and cons. With the Cove Association, it's in infancy, as you said, and I'm not seeing a track record. I do agree that in September there was that period of time it looked very good. After that, we went through the horrible windstorm and everything else, and all of the bad weather that we're prone for. So I personally haven't witnessed the September photographs, but having been down through there at least 6 times in the past 3 months, I personally would like to see a track record for this association, showing that the situation has indeed changed long-term. And I'm not talking long-term years, I'm talking long-term, come out of winter into spring mud season. Just show us a track record, a improvement, a ability to maintain the road. Even if it's, I understand that not being able to gain land for 30 feet and the huge barriers, I do understand that. But to grant the variance to not have to adhere to the subdivision standards means that there has to be some sign of road maintenance that is there for public safety. And as of right now, I have evidence it's not sufficient for me at the moment. Again, I've got to look at the public safety. I agree we're all seeing big trucks going through there. But a track record providing documentation of financial status plans, more than just a estimate for materials and labor. I'm not satisfied at this point, and on the other hand too, I agree that this is small. It's down in that area. There is an honest effort being made, and so that is in the favor. I do like the tree clearing. I still hold with their driveway has good view coming out onto that road, so as to not be a hazard or blind spots. So I have pros and cons, and right now I'm weighing more towards I'm not seeing sufficient long-term evidence of maintenance.
I understand that the public hearing has been closed, but can I request that we reopen it? Because if I could just state, this is the path we took last time, and then my clients had to undergo quite an extensive undertaking to get to this rehearing, and that was because issues were raised that we were not allowed to address at the meeting.
I think after our discussion, we can open it back up.
Thank you.
Babette, do you have any you'd like to add?
I like the fact that they started an association. It's got 4 people in it. This Cozy Builders contract that they have doesn't really address anything we need. I don't know, I'm really torn about it, but I really like the fact that they've made a good effort, and I do think this will go forward, and I think it would become more popular throughout, you know, the entire Harvey Lake. So I'm really encouraged by that. I'm really happy that they're going forward in the spring to make their frontage better. Clearly, I think there's a real good sign that they will do that, and they care enough about it that they've done a lot of clearing themselves, as far as the brush, expanding it, and working with the road and what they've got to work with. And I don't know, I think I'm okay with it, I really do. I'm not seeing anything. The fire rescue addresses, as they said, all the roads going to Lakeshore Drive. And we can only consider what it's on, not the whole thing. And that's, I think, the biggest point we have to look at.
Matt, if I could just clarify the issue about, that's been raised a couple times about what needs to be upgraded. The zoning ordinance says the private road. It doesn't say the portion of a private road, it says a private road. That may be something, if we are going to reopen it, to because my understanding is that they've only submitted a maintenance agreement for 4 people, or 4 homes, where the regulation says the private road, meaning all of the road that it fronts on.
But that wouldn't include Ash Street or Birch Street or anything like that, just,
It would include Shore Drive.
Shore Drive. Yep.
Is that right, just Shore Drive?
Yes.
But the entirety of Shore
That's
Drive?
my understanding of it.
Is our attorney here agreeing with that?
I am. As most laws are, it's not written as clearly as it could be, but it does say shall front on, and then it uses the word road. It doesn't say it shall front on a portion of the road that is brought up to these standards. It says it shall front on a road that is brought up to these standards.
That makes quite a difference.
Yes.
So does anybody have the map up front? How many residents are on?
Oh, we probably won't get Avatar out here, though, will we?
And that's partially what I was getting to in my question.
It's got to be.
There's a lot more than 4 properties on Shore Drive.
See the house?
I can get you a number in a minute if you want it.
Okay.
I wasn't curious.
Like at Birch Street, does where you bear left or right, is that all Shore Drive left and
Yes.
right?
Can we have a 2-minute recess while she gets that? And I can go drink water?
Drink water?
Drink the water?
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess. All right, board's back in session. It's still a closed session.
We have the map going around, so,
Okay.
and then it just needs to go down the map after he hasn't seen it.
Linda wasn't so cheap, she made us a few more.
Well, budget cuts. Mr. Wolf is smiling up there, saving paper.
This is Lake Shore. It goes all the way out of me.
So a quick count, how many residents on Shore Drive?
Well, actually,
50.
there's 37 residential structures of some type in Avatar. There may be other lots. There may be lots that are unbuilt, but there's 37, and they don't get a number unless it's some, a structure on the lot.
So, pass that to me.
I mean, they don't get a street number, they get a map and lot number for the property.
Gotcha. Grange Shore Drive on Lakeside is probably the least populated section of the Harvey Lake Estates area. More space between houses there than Pine Street or Oak Street or Ash Street, Birch
50 by
Street.
100s is what the original lot size is, and if there's only one lot, it'd be a 50 by 100.
Yeah, some of them have combined, which is good, but. So, I guess to continue the discussion, like I said before, I didn't know which way to go. You know, there is no harm to the public. There's in fact, we should consider them public by not allowing them to rebuild their house. There is potential harm to the public because of the conditions the building is in. And they have established the association and want to maintain the road. So I was ready to vote in favor of this motion until I look at 4 residences out of 37 residences are on the association, and legally we have to consider the entire road. For some reason I was thinking it was only to, Ash Street. So now I do feel like there is more work to be done to include more residents of that. I don't know. I didn't know that you could start an association for only a few people on the road. I thought it had to be all the people that are living on the road. I didn't know that. But
Well, I think it's probably open to new members, so it's just started and other people can join kind of thing.
But on the other hand, we can't, there's no way that 4 people are going to be able to afford to plow that entire strip and maintain it.
I didn't realize that either. And I think having 37 people being such a long road kind of changes my mind as well. I don't know, I kind of feel like it's a start. It's a good start. It is at the end of the road. And if you do read the type of frontage, all lots for new building development, as this is, show front on, it includes that road, all of it. And so I think that's the only kind of turning point in it. Other than that, I think everything else submitted is pretty good.
No harm to the public is kind of a wide open statement that could, in a lawyer's hands, be argued immensely either way, because that's what they're trained to do. But so I heard some time back that, not in conjunction to this particular case, but another one, that we had spent somewhere in the area of $3,000 having to haul town vehicles out of this area, and so that to me is a harm, and I'm very conflicted on this whole issue because I live on a Class 6 road, and I probably feel that with the way things are going, had I not built there 20 years ago but tried today, I might have trouble, and I really have a problem with that. I think if somebody wants to build out in the middle of the nowhere, as long as they're willing to take the responsibility, they should be allowed to. So, I don't know. The other question I have, I know I missed a meeting. Has there anywhere been said where they have to say in writing in all of this paperwork that it's a seasonal? So I think you've approved a number of...
The basis of the discussion and the comments that they've made has been based on it being seasonal. I would strongly suggest that if this board was to put a motion on the table to approve, that you would make it conditional that it will be a seasonal use only on this property.
I don't think there's any question in my mind, not 1% of question in my mind, that most of the 24 or 22 out of 24 residences were originally stated to be seasonal. And people have just kind of moved in. And that's a big concern to me. So if this was approved, I would like to see something stating that it was a seasonal. And to be honest with you, if it's seasonal, I'm leaning personally towards approving it. I don't, you know, I just can't, in my mind, find the fairness in saying this part of the road or this road you have to maintain when the roads to get to that road are not maintained. That makes no sense to me. And
Well, it's
so,
two
in
different
honesty, I
processes.
think that that's something that we or the town or the planning board should look at that whole. To me, this is something that we've come upon that doesn't make common sense, as you said earlier, and therefore it should be addressed somehow, some way.
It's two different processes. One is a variance for the zoning ordinance. The other issue is addressed, and they will
select
need
board,
to
yes.
do that.
And I understand that.
You
yes.
know, if they
Yeah.
receive a variance, they would need to
No, I
do that.
understand that. It's just, I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. So as I say, I'm tending, to be honest with you, to approve this because and then the selectmen are going to have to look the whole way. Is the way it's my understanding of the
Correct.
situation. And it does appear to me that the applicants have done a pretty good job with what they had to work with. That's the way I'm looking at it, anyway.
Yeah, I didn't mean public safety, I was saying an I didn't read my own notes right. Unnecessary hardship to the applicants. If this isn't passed or approved as a variance.
Yes.
So-
But I also think there's a side of this to the rest of us, not the applicants, but the rest of us down. So if we have to continually spend a lot of extra money hauling vehicles out, that's not fair either. So, really what's in their area, they've done a pretty good job. And you know, if it's a seasonal for them, if it stays seasonal, I mean, you've already approved the buildings and everything. So it's just that the road, to me, I'm probably going to vote yes, but I do think the town really needs to look at this entire issue and where are we going? Is you know, that's what I think in general. Is the town needs to look at it and say to themselves, you know, where are we going? And then let's go there as a town.
I'm just looking to find where the other people in the maintenance association
Do you
are
want me to-
located
You want me just to highlight?
We can
compared
highlight it.
to.
It's not easy to look at even if you know it. Anybody got any cheaters?
Even if you just circled them, I think I circled yours.
Yeah, that's Mike and Sheila's, okay. So, this is Helen Poles, and this is Ed's.
So just highlight the whole front of the streets, right down there.
Yeah,
So it's from there, all the way down to there. So the beaches.
Is that the beach?
Yeah.
I would suggest at this point that the public hearing has been closed, that if you're considering reopening it, you should ask the entire board if they want to reopen it, or if they prefer to put a motion on the floor.
Gotcha. Thank you. I was hoping it was more spread out. However, what I wanted to see was, so between Birch Street, Ash Street, into Oak Court and Oak Street, that that area is going to be now taken care of with this particular association.
It's all of what I highlighted is the road.
So there's almost 3 ways to get to their property through private roads, but onto this particular private road. From those private roads to their residence will be maintained. Am I coming across correct?
That doesn't make sense to me, no.
All right, so if you go down any of those 3 streets, you'll hit the areas where members of the association reside.
Yes, but those 3 streets have no,
Right, but we can't consider that so
well, I
much.
understand.
Just
Yeah,
a entryway to that. I don't know.
Yeah, and to me, that's a fault of the ordinance. I think,
Agreed.
that's what I'm saying, is that needs to be looked at in a legal way and put to the town and everything else, and it's probably much too late this year. But,
I was thinking what makes this property unique is that the 4 people that are on the maintenance agreement are right there where 3 areas, 3 other roads make that particular property accessible.
Can I-
sorry. Went the wrong way.
So, yeah, right there, yeah.
So it was suggested that we could,
Oh, Oak Court, that's a whole other ballgame.
Oak is a stretch, but. So I can get thoughts on the board to open the public hearing again, or we could go right to a motion. It's up to.
I don't mind, personally.
I think it would be courteous to open it again, because you had something
Yeah,
to
I
say.
don't mind if we
I'm only asking if you're going to deny it.
We'll open the public for a statement from the applicant.
Well, I guess I just wanted to make sure I clarified a few things that I hear on deliberations that last time seemed to lead us down the path of being denied, and then we have to go through the whole process again. The first is, there's always some talk about, well, in the future, maybe we'd like to see it again. I just want to make sure it's clear, if we're denied, but for the appeals process, we cannot come back again. A variance you're not allowed to ask for twice. So if this is denied and we get through the whole process and we get to the court and the court says, no, there's no coming back, I mean, that's it for us. So this is really our shot, so we want to try and make sure everything's covered now. In terms of, I just want to make sure it's clear, because I feel like sometimes the variance request gets confused. So just for the record, the zoning ordinance has no requirement for a homeowners association. That is not the requirement of the zoning ordinance. That is nothing that the town requires. At our previous meetings, we were told that that would be like a game changer, that that would be a big difference to this board. And so therefore the applicant took that, and that's why they formed the homeowners association. Clearly, we're not going to have a track record with that association, and clearly the intent is to get more owners into it. But at this point in time, given the feedback that we had just gotten from the board, this is where we're starting. We're starting to, like you said, we wanted to cover the 3 access ways in, make sure that this property could be accessed. Because the fact of the matter is that even though the variance may say that you have to upgrade the whole road, I mean, we're requesting a variance to that because we are not going to do it. We are arguing that even though we're not going to do the entire road, we are making significant changes to the road to get to this property, and that those significant changes are our reasonings for why this variance can be granted. So I guess I feel like the board's getting focused on the 37 houses and the street as a whole, but that's what we're asking for the variance for. I mean, we're not going to currently upgrade the entire road. I mean, quite frankly, I think the zoning ordinance as it sits is unconstitutional. It's not possible. Like, they don't have the ability to upgrade that entire road to subdivision standards as it sits today. So I guess I just want to make sure it's clear and that everybody focuses on the fact that when we talk about upgrading the road and we talk about the things that we're doing to get to this property, those are our reasons why this variance can be granted, because we're not going to upgrade the entire road. That's the sole purpose of us being here. But that's what makes this better, and that's what makes what we're asking for something that the board can request, because we do have access to this particular lot. And the access to this particular lot is better now than it has been. So, and if you look at the fact that it's only an addition that we're asking for, the upgrades certainly correlate with what we're asking for. And just to get to your point about long-term maintenance, I know that this association itself has no track record, but as was testified previously, since these owners have owned the property, they have personally maintained this roadway. So there has been a track record that they have done that. They've contracted every year to make sure it was plowed. They've owned it for 3 years, so we have 3 years that we know that they've been maintaining it, plowing it, people can get through. And clearly, if that were not the case, we would have heard that from the fire chief, that, you know, your road's not being plowed, or we've had issues in your area. And that's not what we heard. The fact is that they have been doing it, they intend on continuing to do it, that's the representation that they've made. The homeowners association is just a way to sort of push that forward and get other people on board and make sure that we have something in place to do that portion of the road. So I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear and that our position was made clear. And to the comment about a condition that it's seasonal, we don't have any problem with that, because that is what we've represented.
Any other discussions or motions?
You all went off on the 37 houses and kind of blew me away there. I was like, whoa. I only wanted to see a track record on that little piece, and the fact is that it is the whole road, which would change my entire attitude, where I was leaning towards not having sufficient documentation for the road association because it is so new. And I think it is a very, very positive thing that was done. It's just, it's so new. And I think that's why I asked you the question earlier about any chance of looking at it in the spring and just seeing that history. But now it's brought up the entire lake shore with all those homes down there, and I'm a little more confused as far as how I would go on this. So where I was leaning towards, gee, I want more, it's not sufficient for me. I'm now in the like, wow, it's not sufficient for the road. So I'm not sure where I'm going here. So I will yield.
I would really comment this. We only get the chance to upgrade the road when there's somebody's building new on it. And when is somebody else going to build new on it? You know, we just don't know when this will come, you know, this road will ever come before us again. So do we take this opportunity to maybe, I don't know. I really think that they've showed that they can get in and out to this property. I think it's great that they started an association. I do think it will continue. I think more people will get on it. And maybe some of the roads going in that are bad will certainly join on to get their road fixed. So I think it's really going to build. I'm not sure, except for denying it, we can really ask anymore, except to leave it to the decision of the select board, you know, to make it the whole road. I think I'm willing to give them this portion of the road. I think they're more than justified that they've done everything that we did ask, and I think they did a good job as well as doing a lot of work themselves. And I'm satisfied with that at this point. I think they've showed they'll continue to do it just by starting that maintenance agreement. I don't think they'll let it drop, you know. And I think the more people they add on, the better it's going to be, that whole area. So I think it's a win for the whole area. That's what I would like to continue to think, that it's going to move forward. And I don't think them waiting a period of time is, it's too long a time we're going to have to wait. You know, I think that at this point they've proved themselves. And I think that the selectmen will make their decision. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
That's it, huh?
That's it.
I often I'm kind of a black and white guy, and I know that. Known that for 70 years. And I like to make lines in the sand. I don't view this case as a place to do that, to be honest with you. I have already said what I think, and that is, I think they've done a pretty good job in trying to do their little area. I would absolutely love to see, like the Cove Village District, something happen in that area, you know, but that takes an awful lot of work and everything else. That being said, if we were allowed, and we're not, to look at the ingress to the whole, all the way to their property, from a town road all the way to their property, then I would have a different feeling about this. And that's why I say this is not the place to draw the line, at least for me. But I do think that the town needs to take a look at this issue, because, I mean, I've just been on this board for a short time and it keeps coming up. And I can see it's going to come up again and again. And so we need to know, I don't want to do it my way or your way. I want to do what the town wants us to do. So, and we need to look at that. So, again, I don't think this, for me, this is not the right time to draw that line in the sand, particularly because they have a seasonal home there now. So I don't have a big deal with them adding to that seasonal home where they're telling us it's seasonal, and I would like to get that in writing, and I don't see that that's going to add anything, pro or con, to the area, other than the house is certainly going to bring up the area a little bit. But making that a little larger and a little nicer, other than it's going to enhance the whole thing, is not going to harm, certainly not me. Your turn.
Thank you.
You've been quiet all night. You have to talk now.
I've tried to get her, she just doesn't.
I am pleased with what they have done so far, and I think when the other people on the street start to see improvement that these people have made, I think it might start to have more improvement on that street. So I think they've done a good job so far. And I think they intend to continue it because they're seeing a better street with their little bit of improvements that they've done. So I think they're on the right track.
I'm not going to discuss anymore. I'm going to throw a motion on the table that we approve the variance to Article 4, B6, D8 for the type of road frontage, 32 Shore Drive, map 12239. I think the physical changes that have been made, as well as the start of an association, the uniqueness of having multiple access points to the property, the unnecessary hardship that will arise by not approving this and getting your building permit to increase the safety of the structure. I think it's an unreasonable thing to ask you to increase the road width to 30 feet. I think property-wise, it would be an undue hardship on the property, as it would cut into your property as well as the abutter's property. There will be no change in use. The variance would come with the condition that it remains seasonal. And the bottom line is I think it's a reasonable request. I would need a second. I have a second. Discussion. No discussion. Pam Sanderson, how do you vote?
I will vote no.
Babette Morrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim Janabar?
Yes.
Ruth?
Yes.
I myself as a yes. So the motion passes, the variance is approved.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your time.
Thank you for your time.
Here, Holly, here's my copy of the store. Oh, no, she did.
Good job, you. What did I do? Well, no.
I came in with one, I just don't know what happened to it.
Oh, well.
Oh, it does look like my writing on the back of it.
But she's adding something to keep it all together for you. That's not text. I wanted to get
Yeah, that made up, I used a binder clip, that made up for the paper. Do you want it back? I brought my own clips. Drive safely.
Slow and steady.
Yeah, take it slow and easy.
If it promises to be faster, I'd like to call the next case.
Is it going to be fast?
Thank you.
Oh,
The next case.
yeah. It's for the same, does the board feel like we can hear this tonight? It's not too late?
What time is it?
It's 8:15.
Yeah.
I think
Why not?
that's when I remember.
It's only
I think we
one,
can get it
right?
done, yeah.
It's only one.
All right.
Last one was.
They're looking like,
Oh, they probably worked really hard too.
So this is case 1714. It's a continued case. 9 Pleasant View Ave, map 109. We have approved 4 other variances. This variance is to Article 4B6 D8 for the type of road frontage.
Do you want me to start with the review again? Or?
Sure, if you want, yeah, just remind us what's going on.
Sure. Good evening. We're representing, this is Dan Moore. I'm Eric Gundrum. We're representing Steve Kufanek for a proposed new seasonal home on 9 Pleasant View Ave. As stated, we started with 5 articles and of variances, and we are down to our last, which is type of road frontage. After hearing the board's concerns about the type of frontage, several changes have been made to the proposed project to address these concerns, which include reducing the size of the home, moving the home away from the road towards the center of the lot, incorporating a driveway for 2 cars to park on the road, to park off the road. And tonight we will be presenting additional measures that address these concerns. A conditional easement for a secondary right-of-way access from Steve's sister, and a road maintenance agreement. And we request that the board consider in granting us this final variance.
All right.
So I don't know where you want to start handing stuff out, or you want to start having this?
Sure.
Yeah, pass out.
Okay,
You start.
this is the biggest board we've come in front of, so I'm not sure if I have enough copies for everyone. But
That's okay, we share.
the first one is an agreement. I have the signed agreement here. It has not yet been registered, but I will, if we are passed, we will register that as a condition of passing it to wherever it needs to be registered. We have rewritten the application for variance. Last time we kind of went through the questions, and as the project has changed, some of the answers to the questions needed to be revised, so that has been done. That's going around. In an effort to start a new road maintenance agreement, Steve Kufanek and his wife Lisa had sent around a certified letter, and this is a copy of the letter that was sent. And this is also a kind of a status report of people's responses to the letter.
Alexandra is the sister, the front property?
Yep,
Okay, so
correct.
she's granting conditional easement, and that's what you said you're gonna register?
Well, if that needs to be registered, we will register that also, but I know that the
That's like a
road
separate.
maintenance, the road maintenance agreement definitely needs to be registered.
Gotcha,
but
okay, road maintenance.
We will register both if that is requested of the board.
It would need to be recorded as a document in order for it to...
That's fine. We would be happy to do that.
Accessible tonight. Good. Signed an agreement. And this one's did not sign. Oh, that's
More
nice.
people.
That's nice.
Need to triple my office. I have to come here for variance.
So I see on the road maintenance agreement, 2 people will be attending the meeting tonight. Are they here? Would they like to speak?
They are here, yes.
Just please state your name for the record.
Charles Brown, I'm on 6 Pleasant View, or 3 Pleasant View. We received the agreement Friday, I guess, by registered mail, last Friday, and haven't had a chance up until today to talk to him. I spoke to Steve Kupnick today, and he's in San Diego at the time. And I feel that the agreement was not comprehensive enough and didn't agree with some of the things that we need that have been unfair in the past.
It's not doing yet.
It isn't? You're not hearing me? Did anybody hear what I said?
They can hear you. I can hear you because I got headphones on. There we go. That battery's gonna have to go.
So, there are a number of things that have been unfair in the past. Was the use of the road, which I know that the town doesn't have anything to do with that. You're just worried about the maintenance. But the maintenance is also going to involve the right-of-way, which is blocked at present and has been blocked in the past. So, we would like to get that cleared up. I'd like to say that I'm in total agreement with this building being built and to have a road maintenance agreement. I'm in agreement with that. I'd like to see it go ahead. But what I need is more time to help them develop a comprehensive plan for the use of the road and the use of the property. There's been a little bit of a problem because some of my neighbors don't talk to me. Well, maybe all of them don't talk to me. But that's from the past, and the problem is that I'd like to get together with all of them, sit down and have a comprehensive agreement. And that's about all I have to say about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I guess I will. Did anyone get, I sent something electronically, did you?
You sent an email, but we don't...
You don't pass it
No?
now? Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay, I wasn't sure.
And I didn't make copies because I
Okay.
wanted you
I
to
think-
be able to speak
Not
for
when
I
yourselves.
think I've got enough for everybody. Stand here. I'll go around. So I guess I'll read it because I want it to be in the public record. I just, before I read this, I just want to frame this a little bit. The last application, we have, so it's a similar variance, but there actually was a road involved that was obviously quite long and you weren't sure how much of it needed to be maintained. So what we're essentially talking about here, when all is said and done, is a right-of-way to the lake, a driveway. It's not, it was called a road, Pleasant View Avenue, at a certain point because for emergency management purposes, et cetera, they had to name it. So it's a road and it's a private, so it's called a private road now. So I'm going to read this, so I just wanted to frame it. So the whole issue of sufficient width, two-way traffic, it's totally irrelevant. So that's why the use issue seems to be especially important here because just as an example, if it's just about road maintenance, so that you can get emergency vehicles in, you also need to have a clear roadway so that if an ambulance comes into the driveway that the applicant has put on the property, they'll be able to turn around and come out, unless they want to back out, whatever, with the patient. So the uses on that road, to me, are very important. And so I've been trying to figure out what the purpose of this provision of the ordinance is. And to me, some people may say it doesn't include use, but I think in this particular case, because it's really about, it's kind of like it's like a no man's land, where it's really, if it was a regular road, obviously there wouldn't be a garden in the middle of it. There wouldn't be chickens running down the road. It's a quiet area. It's a driveway. And it's also a right of way to Northwood Lake, which is what it was intended for back in the days when people would walk down to the lake. And so it's also it's a way for people to get to their properties and to leave. And it should be clear of uses. And now it's chock full of uses, and the applicant is totally aware of that and is kind of amazed at how it's, happened over the years. So I will read this. I'll try to read it pretty fast. So the past, 34 years ago when we came here, what is now Pleasant View Avenue had no name and was an uncluttered right-of-way to properties along it and to Northwood Lake. It allowed cars to come in and out and park on their properties, and it provided clear access to Northwood Lake, which is fair to say is the reason people living along this right-of-way choose to live so close to each other. They want to live near the lake and have easy access to it. Over time, the right-of-way came to be called Pleasant View Avenue. It also started to get filled up with various other uses. There was an old narrow dock about 3 feet wide to the left of the right-of-way coming off of the Kuptanek property. That dock was removed by Dave Elliott, and sometime after, Mr. Kuptanek asked Charlie what happened to the dock. Around the same time, Mr. Elliott built a wide dock at the end of the road right-of-way, which blocked people from getting to the water unless they went onto the dock. At some point, this dock was connected to the Barton's dock, which is the properties to the right of the right-of-way. And this connection is also at the end of the right-of-way and blocks the water even more. Since the dock was built, someone's boats have been tied up to it in the summer, which further blocks access to the lake. There is also a barbecue, etc., on the dock itself. So that's just one use. It's obviously something that's bothered us because it was done illegally, and even though we've been told everyone can use it, it's basically used by one person. And so I used to walk down to the lake, just go in the water before the dock was there, and I haven't been able to do that for at least 15 years. So the present. Cars are parked beyond property boundaries. Vegetables, flowers are grown in the road each year. There's storage of equipment down by the water. The previously mentioned dock blocks the water. Chickens wander along the road. Imagine if this activity was going on at the opposite end of Pleasant View Avenue, blocking cars coming out onto Lakeshore Drive. Would it seem appropriate then? Who owns Pleasant View Avenue? A private road. Everyone living on it owns it, and individuals should not use it in any way other than as an access for cars and pedestrians to properties and to Northwood Lake. The future. The above uses have been clogging the road for many years when 4 of the 6 properties along it have been occupied. Imagine how crowded things could get on Pleasant View Avenue in the future if all 6 of the properties have people living in them. It should be noted that the 2 Barton properties right next to the lake are for sale. They're to the right of the right-of-way again. There could be changes to that property and more people living there and visiting there in the future. If the Brown Parmalee properties are upgraded or sold, there could be more people living there and visiting. Where did I go? Oh, sorry. The draft agreement sent to us late last week by the Kuptaneks only addresses road maintenance. We believe the agreement needs to be improved so it addresses the usage of Pleasant View Avenue and not just maintenance. We'd hope to have the opportunity to discuss this with the Kuptaneks before the meeting, but as Charlie said, he talked to Steve Kuptanek today, and he seems to be pretty much in agreement with the concerns we have. We are glad to be part of an agreement concerning ongoing maintenance of Pleasant View Avenue, but we believe any road agreement concerning it also needs to address the usage of that road. An improved agreement, which includes wording on road usage as well as maintenance, is for the good of everyone living on Pleasant View Avenue now and in the future, and is also in the public interest. The primary public interest is the protection and preservation of Northwood Lake. The various uses taking place on Pleasant View Avenue create potential environmental impacts from cars, spillage of pollutants, erosion of the roadway, fertilizing of gardens, chickens, etc. Pleasant View Avenue is a straight shot into Northwood Lake, making it especially easy for pollutants to get to the lake. Here is some suggested wording for the road agreement concerning uses. The use of Pleasant View Avenue for anything other than allowing cars, including emergency vehicles, to enter and exit, and allowing people to walk down and access Northwood Lake is prohibited. Specifically, cars may not be parked beyond property boundaries. Flowers and vegetables may not be grown in the road. There may be no other structures or equipment located in the road. Tying up of boats, etc., to the dock that extends into Northwood Lake from the right-of-way, and placement of barbecues, etc., on the dock are prohibited. Washing of cars on Pleasant View Avenue is not permitted. The language in the agreement concerning usage and road maintenance needs to address future owners of property along Pleasant View Avenue. We expect a lot of changes in this neighborhood in the years to come, making it imperative that there be a solid, comprehensive document that protects current and future property owners and the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right.
So if I can just respond to that, if that's okay. We did talk with Steve today, and Steve is open and willing to have discussions about these issues, and either in a form of a separate agreement between the neighbors, or in a later date, a revised version of this actual, called the private road maintenance agreement. He would be certainly willing and open to that. However, at this point, what we were requested to do was to provide a road maintenance agreement to make sure that the road was maintained for safety vehicles, and we feel that we have accomplished that. That is not to say that he's not willing to have discussions and conversations to try to address some of these other concerns. Unfortunately, some of these other concerns, as the board has struggled in the past, as we've all struggled in the past, have kind of realized that this is something that is maybe not necessarily a town issue, and is an issue between the neighbors, and is something that I think is going to take a little bit longer to work out and agree upon than what we can accomplish, at least from noon on today until we've had to present. But it would be Steve's request that the board still consider this road maintenance agreement that was put in place, so that he can move forward. And his message, as he also talked to them, is that he is willing to sit down and even try to facilitate a conversation with the neighbors in the attempts of coming up with some agreements for the uses, as well as either a revised agreement or a totally new agreement that addresses the uses of the road. So.
Nope, that was good.
As you know, Steve is out of town, or is going to use this seasonally, and is going to maintain a residence in either San Diego or Salt Lake City, or both. So it was important for him, at least in this agreement, that he had someone on the road that would be there for the winter that could kind of maintain that portion, or at least be watchful over that portion of the agreement, considering that he is out of town. So I think I'm done, unless somebody has questions for me.
Oh, I think I'd like to thank you for reading your letter and caring about the lake. I really do. I don't see it as zoning board for us to add to the road maintenance. We're only, I think on emergency vehicles and the width of the road, I sympathize with you down there. And I think that, boy, working with a maintenance agreement that's coming into play might be something that will help you. But I don't think we can help you with all the other issues. And that may be just me saying that, but I think it's beyond us.
Can I say something before?
Sure.
We don't want to hold this up, but we just would like some assurance that there will be more than the road maintenance agreement, because we're totally in favor of it, and I think it needs to be a really good maintenance plan, and also thinking about the grading and drainage that we all can get together to pay for. But I really want the applicant to get his approval, but I just want some assurance. I know there's such things as conditional approvals, or maybe continuing the application to get some sort of agreement that we could be happy with, because we don't want to hold it up, we don't want to not sign it, but we're just very skittish at this point to sign it, so.
May I add a comment? The focus of the zoning ordinance is on the access to the property, and to the point where they can turn in and get to their property, and making sure that it's kept open and accessible.
Right.
They're asking for a variance from having to upgrade it. The board has asked to show proof that the road would be accessible and maintained. The other issues are homeowner issues amongst neighbors. The board has no jurisdiction whatsoever to be discussing whether there's a barbecue on a dock or whatever, once they get past where they're accessing the road. That is an association. There are, I believe there's folks on actually up on the other side of the road that may have a legal right to get down that road and get to the lake that way. But again, that would be an association issue for them to be able to say, sorry, I can't get through because there's a flower bed or there's something on the dock or whatever. It really isn't pertinent to the road issue.
Tonight, but you are favorable to.
Yeah, and I understand that. I understand that this use issue is not something you can address. But as someone who's been asked, we've been asked to sign the agreement, and we know the reality of that driveway, right-of-way, road, whatever, is the uses. It's not the maintenance per se. So, so for us to sign, you know, we're being asked to. We're just looking for some assurance that the use issue will be addressed someplace, not here.
You're looking to sign the base model when you really want something a lot better.
Right.
So, good.
Right. And that's kind of what we tried to say, was that if they're not comfortable with the current agreement, which we completely understand, and your concerns are valid because we've all brought up some of the concerns that were listed in that letter, then, you know, Steve would recommend, if you're not comfortable signing, don't sign now. And hopefully we can get everybody on board, or, you know, once Steve's there and everybody's together, you can come up with an agreement that can either replace this one or maybe be in addition to that one. And he certainly is open to that, and you reserve the right to sign at that date or onto that one. But he is willing to talk with you, but as you know, he can't guarantee that something will ever, he can only guarantee he can try, since he's only one of four of you. So, thank you.
Could I address what Linda said, was that access to the road, if it's loaded with cars, how can a vehicle have access to the road? You know, an emergency vehicle. I mean, many times as each tenant, I know the Bartons have many cars, but all the time there's at least two. A tenant has two who park in the right of way. Mr. Elliott has two. We have two. And when there's visitors, there's another two maybe for each property. So that certainly restricts the access to the road for an emergency vehicle. Unless they're parked on their own properties off of the road. That's my...
Right, and I understand what you're saying. As far as what we can really look at,
Yes.
is the maintenance of the road, not whether people park on the road or not. It's purely, we can only look at it through these glasses. I see what you're seeing, I understand what you're seeing,
What
but
the maintenance is for, is it maintenance for a parking lot, or is it maintenance for access for emergency vehicles?
right, I understand. It's
And
gonna be,
that's my argument.
right.
We are putting in a 2-car
Oh, I
driveway
know you are. Yeah.
on, yeah, so that pertains to this, I think. I think everything else, in the sense of from Lakeshore Drive down to the driveway, or to the far side of the driveway where is in use, is the major concern for our piece of property. Is that correct? It's not all the way down to where the flower beds are and also the docks and stuff like that.
Well, I have 2 vehicles parked on the road, but I've got another big lot there that we can park all of our cars there. So we can get everything off the road if we need to. So that's all I'm hoping. Thank you.
My understanding is if it's a private road, those folks who have the right to cross over it have the right to address the issues with people parking in it. It's really not anything the town can do any more than if somebody said somebody was blocking their private driveway. It's a private property.
I agree with what you're saying, Linda, but it appears to me that one set of owners is saying to the rest that we're not going to sign unless some of our other issues are addressed. And that's within their right, has nothing to do with us.
Oh, sure. Absolutely, they can.
That's
Maybe
true.
that's what's going on. I mean, the
But I
chicken
think
thing
we
has
have to
gone over my head, but flowers and vegetables in the road, that makes no sense to me.
Well, that's down by the water,
Okay, I
beyond
don't know.
the driveway. But I think the important thing is to try to separate what this board is looking at in order for them
Yes.
to go with and what the homeowners and
Yeah, I
a group of
understand,
them in the
but
association may
the
decide.
homeowners in front of us were told we told them we would like to see an agreement. And one set of owners on that road is saying, we're not going to sign that agreement unless you address some of the other problems that we're having. And that sounds like something I would do, to be honest with you. But my really only question is there a legal road? I mean, is it just somebody
My
said this is a
understanding,
road? Or
well,
is it-
yeah,
is there-
it's a legal road.
I mean, is
It's
it,
a legal private road.
yes, but is there a width? Is it?
I believe there is. It's actually
Been
a
all through that.
recorded plan, and I think it
Yeah.
was like
That's what I want.
1921.
Yeah, we've got all that.
It's
Okay, so there
quite
is a-
old, and it
Yeah.
shows
It's a
the lot.
legal road.
It
Yeah.
is.
Thank
It's on a recorded
Any
plat.
idea how wide it is?
Yep.
So,
Right at the
we
proposed
have all
driveway,
that?
it's 19 foot
19.
4 inches.
Yeah, we got all that.
and Steve does respect the fact that they're not signing the agreement and is willing to
Work with them.
work with them and take the responsibility, not added additional cost associated with only having 2 people instead of 4 people on the agreement.
Yeah, okay.
And the last set of owners, as they stated, have their property up for sale right now, and he did not hear a response back from them.
Okay, that's the one that didn't pick up. And your letter here from the sister, this is going to go ahead or not?
No, we will.
She's going ahead.
We will register that if the board requests us to register that. We didn't know if it had to be legally registered or if it would just have to be
Oh, that's a good
put
question.
to the board.
It should be registered,
The
okay.
board should
That way,
require that to be recorded.
yeah, it would bind it to the land,
Yes, it
because it
would.
says without limitation.
Okay.
So prior, it had said that she would allow him to pass through. And this one says, property, access to 9 map owned by, through our property without limitation. So, it says conditional right away, but the conditions appear to be the invited guests and up to 2 vehicles. But still, I think it's important, because it was a right of way for local and state emergency vehicles if they need to get through there. I think
And that would, yeah,
That
yeah,
would be,
it's So
We'll
say-
certainly record
Then
that.
it
that
becomes
does-
a recorded easement, and anyone in the future that purchases that property,
It's on record,
it's on record.
yeah.
Is this what you were looking to get before, and you said she wouldn't do it, right? Is
Well,
that
she,
correct?
I think they revised it.
she wanted to, it's non-conditional, my understanding from reading it was it's non-conditional for, it's non-conditional for emergency vehicles and police and fire and EMS. The conditional portion is, as long as Steve and/or his family own the property, she will allow them
Doesn't say that.
to park.
It says without
Doesn't say that at all.
She's
limitation.
already
Okay.
signed it.
Then it will be
It certainly
registered.
says grant a conditional easement for the right-of-way to local and state. It doesn't say non-conditional.
Well, it says without limitation, so it goes to the property, not to the owner.
Well, I guess I can't speak on her behalf. I can only
Yeah.
state that that's what she wrote and was prepared for that
Right.
to be presented.
I would say without limitation means that it would stick with the land
See, I took.
for local and state emergency vehicles.
Let me take a look. I
But
know
that's
her
only
intent.
to access 9 Pleasant View Avenue.
Yeah,
Not the
that's the
whole road.
backside of the property.
Yeah, one,
That's only the backside of.
is to give more easement to, or more ease of traffic around the other side. So it would really put 4 parking places for that one house.
Right. And if by any chance Pleasant View was blocked and a vehicle could not get down through, they've got this ability to go in on the backside of the property. So for the protection of the homeowner and public safety, it's a great provision, in my estimation, to have that backside accessible. But it doesn't counter add to frontage or anything like that, because it's simply an easement.
Yeah, the way I read this, it goes with the property, not the person.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have, I handed all my copies out, but she did prepare it and
Signed it.
signed it and for us to
Right,
present
she
to
prepared
you.
and signed it, so,
So that's
yeah, her
all I
wording
can,
was
I guess
six-
I should not try to speak on her intent.
So that should be registered along with your road maintenance agreement with your signatures and stuff.
Okay.
Vivek, do you have any other questions?
And we've got the new,
Yes, Lisa's advised.
I
There it
know
is.
you were asking about a maintenance agreement. So I'm glad to see that other piece of paper as well for parking, but I think we had moved past that issue.
that was the only one left on the road.
Well, they made the driveway,
Yep,
so we were happy. And the maintenance agreement, I don't know what that is right now. It is and it isn't. The only thing we're looking at is that it's maintained and whatnot, but does this really say that it is?
yeah, well,
I guess it is for the property, because you don't have anybody else.
oh, yeah, I'm sorry, maybe that's the one you don't have the
Yeah.
double of, sorry.
Nothing else seems to be worked out, so I don't know, I would ask the people how legitimate they thought this really was at this point. That would be my question of us. I know you've explained your end, and I understand your end and the abutters and whatnot, but that would be my big question.
I can only say that Steve and at this point, David Elliott's intent is to maintain the entire private road through the winter and the summer, and agree to the financial costs of that. And hopefully, if an additional agreement or revisions are made, the Browns will join, and or if the house is not sold, possibly the Bartons. I'm not sure. We have not had any discussions with them, or a new owner would hopefully join. But at this point, the two of them are willing to take financial responsibility for that.
I think if we maybe had that more in writing, this falls through, that you take on the burden of that. I mean, this does in a sense, but we don't have a signature yet.
We have
You
signatures
know what I
here.
mean?
They've only got one.
Yeah,
we have
Copy.
we have a
That's the
signed
one to
copy.
be registered.
And then I'm not sure, because Steve is out of town, I have a photocopy of his signature, and I didn't know if they had to be, you know, I could discuss this with Linda later as to what procedure and, you know, needs to be done in order to get them registered.
Yeah. That's all I have for now.
I don't have any questions. Let's get right into the 5 questions.
Okay.
Cool. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because
It would not conflict with the original intended use of the private road to provide access to property owners. The application has incorporated a driveway to accommodate parking for 2 cars. This was done to prevent additional on-street parking/congestion. The application also has a secondary access/parking area off Lake Ave available to him to reduce the use of congestion on Pleasant View Ave.
the use is not contrary to the spirit of the ordinance because
The application is not requesting a change in use for the existing road and has made accommodations for a driveway, 2 parking spaces, and an agreement for an application for secondary access parking to prevent negatively impacting the existing conditions.
granting the variance would do substantial justice because
It would allow the applicant to upgrade and make significant positive changes to the current uninhabitable season home with adequate accommodations in place to prevent additional congestion on the road while not altering the property from its last intended use as a seasonal home.
the proposed use would not diminish surrounding property values because
The existing structure is uninhabitable and is in disrepair. In addition, the lot is overgrown and unkept. The proposed project would address both these conditions, increasing property values. Removing the existing structure would decrease potential hazards and safety concern for the community.
the special conditions of this property that distinguish it from other properties in the area are as follows.
9 Pleasant Ave is the largest lot on the Ave of .190 acres. The proposed project has the smallest percentage of lot density as compared to the neighbors on the avenue. Has a proposed driveway to accommodate 2 parking spaces. The application has a secondary access and secondary parking area granted by his sister on an abutting lot. It is the only seasonal home on the road, and the proposed driveway is 149 feet from Lakeshore Drive.
Owing to the special conditions set forth above, the property cannot reasonably be used in the strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable a reasonable use of it because
The current conditions, existing lot sizes, and road dimensions make it impossible to meet the new road requirements. Without granting this variance, the applicant would be unable to build on the lot or make improvements to the current existing conditions, utilizing the private road upon which it has frontage. The applicant has made attempts to be sensitive to the concerns of the zoning board representing the community and to the neighbors. The house was redesigned to provide a driveway for parking, and a formal agreement was put in place for secondary access and a parking area for the applicant. With the development of a maintenance agreement, the neighbors and emergency vehicles can expect that the road will be kept in good working condition.
any discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the variance, Article 4, Point B, Section 1B2 of the zoning ordinance, private road. Conditional to the registering or of
Recording?
of the road maintenance agreement and the letter of easement from Alexandra Kufenick to the property on 9 Pleasant View Ave.
And would you, like the last one, the seasonal, that way it'll be
Yes,
recorded at the
again,
registry?
maintaining current use as a seasonal home.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Could I have a question. Could you read back the article number?
I've got 4B. I'm reading off the top of.
Oh, well, hope I didn't make a mistake.
Did you make a
Brenda, can I
mistake?
see your book again?
I had,
17.
Since you got a free clip out.
I mean, I'm just looking at the agenda and it's 4B, 6D, 8, and I thought she said 2 at the end.
I did.
Oh, I
I
do
said
have a 2
4B,
written
1B, 2.
I may have,
I think it's D.
In D8.
oh, I must have copied the wrong,
She said 2, and I think,
I must have copied
Yeah, I
the
read
wrong.
off of this.
Yeah.
so 4B, 6D, 8, is that correct?
No.
That's what's on the,
Which one's correct, the agenda or the application?
E60, that could be.
The application is right.
I would think the
There's
application.
a motion on the table, so I can't take any public comment yet.
I'm looking back at the Northwood denial is 4B, 1B, 2, type of frontage, private road. So that's 4.B, parentheses 1, lowercase b, parentheses 2. It says type of frontage, private road,
Which is what I've got in front of me.
which is.
I'm sure that's the correct one. Yes, we're
Right.
looking
So the
at it.
agenda
It's a
has.
typo.
The agenda has a typo.
Could we amend that then, the motion?
The motion was correct.
Oh, was it? All right.
Yeah.
So
The motion was
so it's
correct for-
4B, 1B, 2. Thank you.
Thanks for catching that. So again, I was in support of 4B, 1B2, granting the variance private road, with the condition of,
We have it, 3 of them.
yeah,
2 documents are to be recorded.
2 documents and seasonal home.
So I had the motion and I had a second from Babette.
Second.
So discussion.
I think that in terms of this property, what has been done is the best that can be done for this property. Acceding to the septics, to the road, the parking, including the easement to the adjoining property.
I agree. What makes the property unique in this particular road is one, it's got a driveway to house the 2 cars that'll be residing there. It's got 2 access points now. It has a road maintenance agreement that at the baseline is favorable, and other people, butters, only want a better road maintenance agreement. It's a good problem to have. I'm in favor of it as well.
Yeah, me too. I think we are,
I am too.
yeah, as long as they pay for it and they know they're gonna pay for the maintenance and whatnot, if other people don't join on is good. You know, so I'm happy with that.
I am too. I just would like to say, although it's none of my business, that I hope you can work with the issues. I do think, the chickens notwithstanding, that there are some issues that I think, out of fairness, should be resolved.
I agree. I think they've done what we've asked.
If there's no further discussion, I'll take a vote. Pam,
In
how do
favor?
you, in favor?
Favor.
In favor? Tim?
Favor.
I'm also in favor. So the variance passes.
Thank you.
thank you.
I have to say,
Finally.
I commend you on all the work that you've gone through to get to this point, too.
Ugh,
We appreciate you considering the variances.
and helping us out quite a bit. Yes.
Never talked to someone so much.
Well, and then I'll need to talk with both of you or one of you to figure out exactly if they need the original signatures and where I need to register both of those documents.
Okay, I can send you an email. Or why don't you send me an email?
Sure.
And then I'll reply with the information.
Perfect.
It's basically a document fee at the registry. We'll record the notice of decision, which will have a season, the 2-year recording, all that stuff. Document fees at the registry of deeds.
Oh, we probably have to read the.
We would have to do that.
Easy process.
Perfect, thank you. And I originally had it written that we would do that, but I didn't know if I had the right name of the organization listed, so I was a little hesitant that it would have to. Thank you. Changed.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So, at this point, do we have any correspondence?
No, you have to continue with Mr. Street.
Oh, that's right. I do have a letter from case 1720. They would like to postpone the hearing to January. The meeting would be January 22nd. Do I have a motion to approve that postponement?
What's the name of that case, please?
It is Jeffrey Street,
Tiny
map
one,
109,
and they want to postpone till when?
January 22nd.
What else have we got in January? We've got
We have Mr. Kane.
Yes.
we have Mr. Kane, January, and the
Granite Street.
subdivision, Granite Street also.
That will be pretty full.
Would you like to?
February.
I think that street one might take longer than we think.
You know it though.
What?
Yeah. So
I'd like a block of time.
I
for the
kind of
street
think
one.
that so we've got Granite and Mr.
Kane.
Mr. Kane, and that's a full thing.
Yeah,
on
I would almost
that
recommend
January
postponing to
hearing.
And there's no time to add another meeting.
No,
Because of
we've been doing 2 a month right now, and
It's
it's,
just like.
The January schedule.
and again, we were here tonight for him, so he can wait till February.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry, February.
If you want to consider 2 in February, but I definitely wouldn't keep adding on January.
No, I would put him to February, because I think that,
They're not going to do it.
again, with,
26 is the regular meeting.
with Granite Street and all that, you've got 3 of us off, so,
Right.
you know,
The
you,
12th is a holiday.
Yeah,
and I don't want to spend Valentine's with you guys, okay? I'm going on record.
Draw the line
do I have a
there.
motion to postpone till 22nd, or 26th?
Continue.
To con,
Continue till the 26th.
February 26th,
The street.
and paperwork didn't come in, or just a delay, or
Well, yeah, I think,
something?
He's still working
still
on it.
working
All
on it.
right, February
So give him
26th.
time to get everything in.
Give him
Yeah,
time.
to
Notebook,
look
there's
at
not
it.
that much more you
True.
can add.
actually, we have a voting member who's not
Have
here.
a whole notebook.
Are you going to read the rules of procedures again?
Okay.
Will you read the rules of procedure again, so that Matt, so that Justin and Brenda can...
So I have a motion for February 26th to
Make a
continue.
motion to move street to February 26th.
A second.
I have a second from
2018.
Babette. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I had it right in front of me for the last 2 hours. Where is it? Okay, Matt, what I'm going to suggest is that you only read the changes.
I love that suggestion. Is there any correspondence prior to that?
No.
Okay. Okay, I am going to review and reread the updated zoning board procedures.
Only the underlined stuff.
So this will have been adopted November 12th, nope. Revised December 18th, 2017. Under designation of alternates, whenever a regular member is not present at a meeting, the chair shall designate an alternate member to be a voting member in the meeting if one is present. When more than one alternate is present, the chair shall designate which alternate shall be a voting member. Under participants participation of alternates. All alternates present at a meeting may fully participate in the meeting with regular board members on any matters before the board, except that only designated alternates may participate in deliberations and voting, which includes making and seconding motions and discussions on the motions. The chairman shall preside over all meetings. In the absence of the chairman, the vice chairman or chair pro tem shall preside. Under orders of business, we're striking F, non-public sessions. Public hearing. The conduct of public hearing shall be governed by the following rules. The chairman or the designated chairman pro tem shall call the meeting to order, call for a report on the first case. The board secretary or board administrator, in her absence, shall read the case number and the name and report on the manner in which the public notice was given. If there is more than one request for appeal, the chairman shall announce the first appeal. The applicant shall present a brief summary of its appeal. Board members will be asked one time if they have any general questions. The chairman shall ask if there are any abutters present for the case and if they wish to speak to the appeal. The chairman or his or her designee shall ask the applicant to provide testimony on the criteria for the appeal. The chairman shall ask if there are any additional comments from abutters. The chairman shall ask the board members if they have any questions of the applicant. The chairman shall announce the closing of public hearing on the appeal, which closes discussion to the applicant and public.
Does Tim have one?
I read it online.
Okay, really, I got a duplicate.
The board will
Try to
open
make sure
deliberations
we
on the
take care
appeal. One of the members of the board shall present a motion to take action on the case. Board members shall state their findings of fact regarding the motion on the floor. After discussion on the motion, the chairman shall present a summary setting forth the facts of the case. The board will proceed to take action on the case, including but not limited to deny or grant the appeal, request further information, or continue the case for a reason deemed necessary by the board. The hearing on the appeal shall be declared closed. If there is more than one appeal in the case, the board shall proceed using the same process.
Fast reader.
You could speed
Trying
it
to get
up a
everybody
bit.
home. 7, we are striking 7 public hearing information procedures. General rules. We're striking A and B. Do I need to read that, or is that sufficient?
Can you,
And E.
good?
Okay. The board, under appeals, number 3, the board shall reject any petition not properly filled out. Zoning board staff will post the day and time of the hearing as required by state statutes. Under public notice, we are striking at the town hall at least 5 days prior to said hearing and adding as required for public notice under state statutes. We are also striking no less than 5 days and adding as required by state statutes. Under amendment, these bylaws may be amended by a majority vote of the members, provided that each amendment is read at 2 successive meetings prior to adoption, which that completes the second one. Do I have
Motion
a
to
motion?
adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt the revisions of December 18th, 2017 in its entirety.
I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And there's one more thing you have to do.
Do you
Do we
want to
do-
elect a vice chair? We put that off a while ago,
To do the
and should
dance.
you be called out on other business or whatever, can't make it?
Do you want it? Really?
We should have someone that is a designated vice chair.
I thought a rotating one would be good, so we all get experience.
Well, I
Nobody
think
was on board with
state
that,
looks-
so.
The state looks for 2 people's names, and that's.
The state wants 2 people's names.
You can change next.
You guys can speak now too.
Yeah, we're all, so we're not eligible.
You can speak now, but you're not eligible.
I would make a motion we let Pam.
You're gonna nominate Pam?
I have a motion to nominate Pam Sanderson as vice chair, and I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Wait.
Motion passes. Keep yawning, what's going on? All right,
Man.
motion to adjourn.
Before she said she just.
All right, you guys are in
You
trouble
are
now.
anyway.
I make a motion to
There's only
adjourn.
one person between me and the
Wait,
crowd.
wait, wait.
Oh, hold on.
I have a couple of things. Number one, my attendance. So we were supposed to, at the joint board, the joint board is looking at changing their schedule, having nothing to do with this. Their concern, and it really came to light today, is, as most of you know, this board decided to start videographing, or whatever the word is, the meetings. So therefore, because the joint board is the same day as this one, Gary is no longer videoing our meetings, and that has upset some of the board members. There's a particular issue going on right now, so they had me request, although I knew it wouldn't work, because he was going to be here, if they could have Gary tonight. As it turns out, they canceled the meeting. They're a bunch of wimps, and a quarter inch of snow wiped them out. Like my wife. We call my wife 3 flakes and she's out. Anyway, so that's one thing. I'm hoping at the next meeting, and that hasn't been decided, that a change will be made, in which case I'm going to want to stay on this board. If not, I'm probably going to resign, because that just doesn't seem fair. You know, because it just is a direct conflict with the joint board. And I was on it before I was on the zoning board. So anyway, I wanted to tell you that. And the other thing, I really would like to get into a conversation with you all, and even figure out how to take that further as to what in the world are we doing? Because I'm not sure, and I'm on the zoning board. We're approving houses on lots that are 10% of an acre, this 19% of an acre, and is that where we want to go? And my concern is that I'm always going to land on the side of the town. If the town says to me, as an appointed or an elected official, we want you to do this, Mr. Janiber, then that's what I'm going to do. So at town level, I know that we're not really a democracy, we're a republic. I get that. But at the town level, in my mind, we are a democracy. And so, you know, I just wonder if we want to ask the town again, you know, because they have said clearly that a lot should be 2 acres. And I'll be very honest with you, I am extremely concerned about Northwood Lake and the invasive species. It is never going to go away. I can sit here and tell you today, positively, it is never ever going to be fixed 100%, only controlled. But in my short tenure here, I mean, we have just keep approving, we being the board. In both cases, I wasn't here, the 2 that are questionable to me. And I'm not questioning any of you, I'm just saying to you, what are we doing? And by that I mean, what does the town want us to do? Do they want us to approve new houses on, and that's a big difference, improving a house that's there and approving a new house on a 0.19 acre.
We haven't.
Or,
We didn't. We didn't.
well, somebody did, there's one right tonight.
That was replaced.
No, that was a replacement. That's
It's
a,
like a remodel.
yeah, that's
Structure
a,
there.
that's a vacant
I see exactly what
eyesore
you're
with
saying.
rat
Yeah.
And I
infestation.
know, so I agree with you, like, I feel like on edge which way I'm supposed to go. Am I supposed to go with what the town voted for and be stringent on that? But then, that's why there's a zoning board that has
I
the ability to
understand
grant
that,
those
but,
variances.
what's the third one we missed tonight?
That's
The park, that's a teeny itty bitty one,
Okay,
yeah.
let's not get
But we
into any
cannot discuss
discussion on
that.
any case. We can't talk about any
Anything,
case
yeah.
in particular.
My point to you is that somehow I would like a little more clear understanding not from the selectmen, and not from you all, but from the town, of what their expectations are.
Right, I can see
And,
that.
and I also think that we ran into a really interesting issue tonight where approving a road over here, the town says it has to be brought up to a subdivision standard, but the road getting to that road is way below subdivision standard. I mean, that makes no sense to me. So that's another issue that it seems like we should,
It's a
Address.
planning board issue.
and it probably is, yes. but-
Certainly, here's a way that that can be addressed. In the past, the planning board has asked the zoning board, are you seeing things that you keep repeating over and over and over, same problems?
There's one.
And so this board could sit down and draft a letter to the planning board. We'd like you to look into this. My understanding is that our planner will be looking at the potential of a subcommittee to start talking about small lots again. We had some type of subcommittee that more or less fell apart, didn't have but one or two meetings, but I've been trying to encourage something like that. Is that something you could do
Well, I would
part-time
like to
at
then
some
make a
point,
motion
or-
that we ask Linda to draft a letter for our approval at the next meeting to go to the planning board addressing this issue.
And one thing I can do is I just finished the year end that shows all the applications and all the
Yep.
approvals, denials, whatever, for them to see what the
Well,
board has been looking at for the
So
past
there's two
year.
issues. But to me, the main issue to go to the planning board is just the fact of the roads over here, but these roads are not. Okay,
Right.
it's going to be improved. So that's one issue that I think the planning board should be looking at as fast as possible. to be
Right,
honest
maybe
with
the
you.
concern is getting to it rather than just upgrading to
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, just, if we forced them into improving their road to the subdivision standard, that doesn't help Nick and his, or Chief Delay
Get there.
to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't solved anything.
It could be a 4-lane highway, but if it's a mud pit to get there,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter.
And that doesn't
Right.
seem fair.
But
Right.
people will form an association.
Well, the other side of it is maybe the regulation could be more in line with the 674 that the selectmen address.
And so I just think we need to look at it. I really think that we need to portray our concerns to the planning board and look at it. Whether we got together and talked or, did back and forth the emails and letters, it doesn't matter to me. But I think there's some genuine issues there. And
We
thank you
can
for
get
your
it
time.
started and get something out there.
And I'm not doing
And
it on
certainly,
Valentine's Day.
How many boyfriends? do you
It's
have?
something that is the number one long-range issue for the town of Northwood, is dealing with all the lake lots, the undersized lots. It's a big issue that's got to be addressed in the
I
big
agree.
end of having community water, community sewer. And we just keep going through one at a time, at a time, at a time. But
I agree with you, Linda.
we're not
but
looking at the big picture.
I think some of this in a smaller scale than public water and public sewer, we need to address.
Right.
And my concern is, I think the town is clearly set. Now, I know what happened. The planning board put an ordinance in front of the taxpayers and they voted for it. But I really think we need to learn from the taxpayers what their expectation is. And I know that having sat through many a meeting, one annual meeting of the Northwood, whatever they are, Northwood Lake
Watershed.
Water, whatever.
Watershed
I mean,
Association.
That is a really hard-working group who is doing yeoman's work in trying to keep that lake in a condition where people want to live on it and are willing to pay rent prices and taxes, which is to the benefit of all of us. That's to the benefit of all of us. If Northwood Lake turned green, the property values would go down, and that means our property values would have to go up. Our taxes would go up. Not our property values, but the cost per thousand would escalate. So it's in all of our interest, but honestly, I just want to know what the town wants, because that's what I'm going to do. my side of things. Now, there are always extenuating circumstances, but frankly, if the town says, we expect you to do this as a zoning board member, then that's kind of where I would want to fall.
I think the fact that that you had the idea that we voted a new home is important to try to relate to the town too, just because I feel good that everything, since this board, I think this board has done a really great job digging into the details and really trying to find out, and like this last case, push them to the brink to get everything that we required. I mean, what they started with versus what they ended with were two totally different things.
It was huge. This
Huge
was,
house,
their
you know,
fifth
crazy difference.
appearance or so? It was huge.
Yeah,
But if you look on that, we're not supposed to talk, can we talk a case that's been approved? Oh.
No, because it's still under the 30-day appeal time.
I just, you know, there's more properties available on that road.
But I think the difficulty would be getting in front of us, just like, for instance, another case, they wanted to add a brand new building to their lot when it was substandard size. I think we held
We
firm
have
with
addressed the
town
issue
voted
of
in.
saying no. It's hard.
I mean-
It's hard.
So as I look at some of
We've
the things,
addressed
like it says you're supposed to have 120 feet, I mean, you're supposed to have 150 feet frontage, but you only have 120. I don't have a problem with that, personally. You know, some of the areas that I do have a problem is sight line and things like that. You know, or they're supposed to be 20 feet off, but they're only 17. You know, something like that. To me, that's what we're about. You know, a
You're
variance.
close to the standard.
Yes,
Right.
close to the standards, but when we are being asked, and in the future or in the past, for 1/8 the size of what the town told us to do, so a 20% of an acre versus 2 acres, then I just struggle with that.
Well, the tough part is when that building is falling apart and people are
Yeah.
residing there.
Or it's
and
a
they
mobile,
need
or
to-
it's a mobile home.
Right, or a mobile home, and they need, for safety reasons, to be able to upgrade that.
And I did see at the end, I wasn't here for that meeting, and that's why if I can't change, if the joint juror doesn't change, then it's not fair. I felt bad that I wasn't here to hear all of the other part of that case. That was one of the meetings I missed, and that's just not fair. If I'm going to be in something, I want to be in it. And if I can't be in it, then damn it, I don't want to, you know, just here and there. It doesn't seem fair to them at all, to the applicant is my position. So I think I'll know by the next meeting what the joint board's going to do, and then I'll have to make my decision. Anyway, nice talking with you. Thanks for listening. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.